Hello and welcome to Jockeys, the podcast. I'm Adam McNamara, and this is the racing podcast where we strip away the guarded versions of jockeys that you see every day on TV, giving them the platform to tell us what they really think. We talk about their regrets and aspirations, and we have a couple of laughs along the way as well.
In this episode, Sam Twitston-Davies.
Mine and Willie's relationship is the healthiest one in the world. You get back home and just won't talk. I went to Vegas a couple of times, and actually Harry Cobden joined us one year. I said, I need a stamp, I won't be coming back. Although Nicholls' job, and I'd love to be back in it now because I deal with it a hell of a lot better, but it's the position you're in. What did we do last summer? We went punting in Oxford. I never thought I'd go punting in Oxford.
Right, let's leave it there before you dig yourself into another hole.
What a great sales pitch.
Welcome to Jockeys, the podcast, Sam. It's really good to get you on. I want to start, as I do always, with outside a race. And you mentioned just before we started recording that you've got a couple of days off. So tell me what days off look like for Sam Twitston-Davies. What are you doing outside of the saddle?
Well, one thing I'd like to do if we got frozen off in the middle of the winter, as a lot of the lads will tell you, be quite keen to get away to the snow. Being a ginger, if I went to the sun, I mostly burn. So if I could get skiing, I would. This time around, there's actually Punchestown around the corner, so won't go too mad. But where I'm lucky, where we live, we have a great friendship group, and there's a lot of the local builders, electricians. We'd often get together in the pub. Maybe I might end up going to a casino, something like that. But go and actually just catch up what is normal world, hear about normal things that people are dealing with every day, rather than just me going around a field.
And tell me about the skiing specifically. I want to touch into that a bit because the only experience I have skiing is I went to an indoor one with friends years back, and they said, "Oh, just tell them you've skied before, so you can go on the slopes with us."
And you'll
And
be
it was a
fine.
big one in Manchester, and they were like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Just do this to stop and go side to side." And I was like, "Ah, jockey, great balance. I'll be A1." Anyway, long story short, within 5 minutes, a security guy comes up to me after I fell over 10 times, like, "Mate, you're going to hurt someone. You've got to leave." And I just obviously ruined the experience for me. I've never been back since. But it seems to be a thing that jockeys really take to for some reason. There's a lot of flat and jump jockeys who love skiing. So what's the obsession?
Well, you just got taught the wrong version of just doing the pizza slice. If you just do the pizza
Yeah.
slice side to side, it's the best way. But when you explain it, it's actually a lot trickier than it sounds. I think it's just, as always, you're tracing adrenaline. It's going fast in a straight line if you want, but some side to side. And you like to do something that gets your heart going. And for me, it's something that works really well. And it's getting yourself outside your comfort zone and trying to do something and get better at something. I think it just is a way of improving actually nearly your riding, because you're getting away, you're clear-minded, and the last thing you're thinking about is a racehorse.
Mm. And what kind of level are you at skiing wise now? Would you consider yourself like fairly handy or?
Well, this is where we went wrong as kids. Dad took us away one year, Willie and I. And when you get your skis, they say, "What standard of skier are you?" And Dad, as a kid, said, "Oh, they're brilliant, they're excellent." And basically, the better skier you are, the tighter your bindings are. So now I'd say, yeah, I'm average, because if you're average, then your skis are more likely to come off. So when I was young and Dad had told them we were brilliant, I hit a mogul and one of my skis didn't come off and I broke my leg. So I'd rather the ski fall off than not nowadays.
Is that not like when you're on top of a mountain with a broken leg as a kid? Does that not put you off for life? I think that would scare me.
Trust me, when you're dealing with my dad, it was a ski in the ribs. Get up, you'll be fine. Got up, went straight back down. And he said, "What's wrong with you?" "My leg won't work." So luckily, there was a nice ski guide with us. He picked me up, carried me down, and got shipped off to hospital quite sharply, thankfully.
And tell me a little bit then, you mentioned about a casino earlier. And I think for, say, the average viewer, that might ring a few bells because I think, well, jockeys shouldn't be betting. But obviously, the technicality is jockeys can't bet on horse racing. Obviously, that's fairly well known. But outside of that, you're allowed to have a couple of bets on whether it's football or casinos, whatever. If you are going to a casino, are you going straight to a blackjack table? Is it poker? What's your gig?
Well, Aidan Coleman, Richard McClellan, and I have been to Vegas a couple of times, and actually Harry Cobden joined us one year. And I think what it is just, once again, it's an adrenaline rush. You're doing something that's so out of your control. You're losing money that you've worked very hard to make, and it's just doing something you don't know. And we would venture from a craps table to a roulette to blackjack. Like, we'd chance our hand at anything, and if we were being unlucky at something, we'd just go try something else. So it could end up being an expensive day, but it's honestly, to go to that Vegas is like something out of a film. You get fly in, they say we're landing in 10 minutes, and you look out the window and be like, how on earth? It's a desert out there. Then before you know it, then the whole place arrives, and it's just like it is out of a film. And especially when you go around the casinos, winning, losing money, it's a hell of an atmosphere, and it's something I've always enjoyed doing, because once again, it's just a great escape from racing.
And tell me, I've never been to Vegas. I've always wanted to go. Obviously, we see what's in the movies and The Hangover and stuff, and I can imagine you and Coleman, Cobden and Co probably would have ended up something like the lads in The Hangover at some stage. But what's the was there anything about Vegas that like isn't in the movies, or something that surprised you that you thought this is unique?
The breakfast.
Really?
You've never seen anything like it, I promise you. The buffet in the Wynn, I think it was, is like really famous for its breakfast, like huge big queue, but it's basically an all you can eat. And you'll be going in and you could have roast beef, steak, pizza, pasta, Italian, Chinese, and this is for breakfast. And then you'd finish off breakfast with pudding, and you'd be having pancakes, and then you could actually have an omelette, eggs, bacon. It is, and you're jockeying, you're supposed to be like watching a weight, whatever, and you get that week off in August, and you've ended up over there. You just literally, you eat lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but breakfast would fill you up so much that you actually wouldn't want to move for the rest of the day. And trust me, you'd be sat on a sun lounger then by the pool, little pot bellies, all looking fast asleep nearly.
Tell me about Harry Cobden in Vegas, because that's just because I can't. Obviously, I only know him from the Rain Room and his farming background, and he seems very chill, laid back, typical farmer. I just can't picture him in Vegas. Did he get stuck in when he went out there, or was he a bit reserved as per usual?
Terrible gambler.
Really?
Yeah, couldn't take losing. That's the thing, is what you have to remember is when it's not going well, to walk away. Harry wasn't one for walking away.
I'm still fascinated about this. Is there?
You're keen to go, aren't you? You'll have to buy yourself.
I am. I think. Yeah, I'm gonna jump on the plane with you guys next year. When you jump jockeys are all in Vegas, like I've mentioned The Hangover, and there might be some stories that you're not allowed to tell me, but is there a story that you can tell me? And did it end up a little bit like The Hangover? Did Vegas get a hold of you guys, and did it get a bit out of control, or did you manage to keep it in check?
Well, this is where we went wrong so many times. We're like, you turn up in Vegas. One, I'm ginger, so first job, always apply your sun cream first thing in the morning. Step one. Step two is the good DJs don't come on till like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. So we bought tickets for Steve Aoki one year, and literally we're having to try and keep ourselves awake just to make it to the start time of that. And then obviously the pool parties were world famous, and that was the issue. We went to a pool party one day. Obviously Rich McClellan doesn't drink, so Aidan and I thought we'd buy a bed, and the deal of the bed is that you had to spend $1,500. So we were like, right, that's easy enough. So when there was only two of you and Richie trying to eat and drink your way $1,500 worth of alcohol and food, it was a bit of a challenge. So by the time then it's come to the evening, Aidan and I are speaking a different language. Richie is babysitting us to bed. And I think we ended up in bed by about 10 o'clock and didn't even end up going out for the evening.
Successful night.
Yeah, honestly, just the stuff you wouldn't advise.
You did mention both with the skiing and with Vegas, that sort of adrenaline rush. So what I want to tap into a little bit with you is from my perspective, say I never rode over obstacles on the track, did a bit of schooling when I was a kid, and that was the extent of it. But I've always found it fascinating. I think the average racing fan would find it fascinating to get what it actually feels like, particularly around Cheltenham Aintree, big days, 20 runner handicap hurdles, whatever it is. winging down to the first? Because it looks like, whether it's just the camera angle at the time, it looks like a lot of those races, you guys are absolutely flying down to the first, quicker than you'd probably go on a flat race. When you're approaching fences or hurdles at that speed, are you actually thinking, like, logically trying to find strides, or are you literally just holding on for dear life and just praying that you meet it at the right stride?
It's always nice if you can meet one on a nice stride, but a lot of the time you'll know the horses you're on. They're well schooled, they're well prepared. It's just you're trying to get into a position where you're comfortable for not just yourself, but for your horse as well. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, is when you give up, is that's what you miss, is that adrenaline rush of going to the first in a Grand National, Champion Hurdle, even a Scottish National, of getting a good start and ending up in a position you're happy with. It's like it's half the battle. And I think that's what's so hard to give up on, is that adrenaline when you're just going down to the first. It's amazing. You could be worried about, for a Grand National, remember the lads would say you'd lose an extra pound to be on a saddle that is a little bit bigger. The last thing you're thinking about when you're going to the first is what size your saddle is. That is for sure. But I think it's like anything. It's playing the situation as best you can. It's riding the race, not the occasion. And that was something is why what makes brilliant jockeys brilliant, and maybe some that struggled a little bit less, So one person I had so much time for was Nico de Boinville. Like, he's just the ultimate professional. And if you're near him in a race, you're definitely not too far wrong.
And is it something that's changed for you over time then, say from your very first Cheltenham Festival, jumping off the adrenaline rush and maybe a bit of overexcitement, bit of panic and stress? Has that changed for you? Did it change quickly, or did it take a long time to get into a position where you feel like, I'm not, obviously still feel the adrenaline, but I'm not panicking, I'm not stressed, I'm being professional, and I can fight my corner and get my position?
Yeah,
How
well,
long did it take you to get there?
exactly it. It's time to get into it. Whereas before, you might miss the start, and then you'll force yourself into position, try and make ground up, rather than just accepting this is the situation you're now in and riding a race. When you're a bit younger, you try and force yourself to be somewhere, and you probably end up using petrol and doing things the wrong way around. There's actually a good story of that when Willie and Tom Bellamy were riding their first Cheltenham Festival. Willie was on one of Dad's Mad Moose, and Tom Bellamy was on one of David Pipe's, and they're a bit slowly away. And they were next to each other, and Willie shouted across to Tom, "Don't worry, Tom, I'll find us a way to the front." So Willie looped the field and managed to get somewhat handy. Anyway, Belzy rode a little bit more sensible race and ran okay.
Yeah. That's another one I want to talk to you about, and you brought me to it nicely, is the starts. Particularly, again, and it's an everyday thing, but particularly at the bigger festivals, bigger runners. I'm fascinated by jump jockeys organising themselves at the start, because obviously on the flat there's stalls, you've got your draw, it's quite simple, and obviously everything from there you have to organise yourself. But I think it gives me anxiety watching you lads down at the start trying to get positions when there's that many of you, and you can tell there's 10 of you have been told be handy, there's another 5 said make the run, and a couple of you trying to drop out. How do you actually organise yourself, and how much conversation is going on? Because we don't hear, sometimes we get a little bit of feedback on the mics, on the racing channels, but how much chat and how much arguments are going on down the start to get your position, and how do you actually end up where you want to be?
Yeah, Cheltenham's, Aintree, Ayres, Sandown even, they all get quite lively. The funniest thing to actually go and watch is if you see a lad that really wants to kind of buck out down the inner, go and watch the parade ring. Is that if their horse is just getting towards the chute and the bell goes, sometimes you'd see a jockey turn into a 100-meter sprinter across the paddock just to try and get out, because that way then you're assuring yourself a position you know you can be in. So a lot of the time it's about getting out and getting across. But it's like anything, you have to make the best of the situation you're in. If you know a horse is jumping slightly left or right, you'll have a conversation. But lads are obviously all brilliant. Everyone knows everyone's under the same pressure, but it's the same time as why the false starts probably do happen, is because people are feeling they need to be forward, they need to get in, they need to get a good start. And that's probably why the communication is lost sometimes. But as you get older, you get a little bit more relaxed towards it, and you know the lads you can follow, you can trust, who are going to get a good start. Then you can play the scenario a little bit better, but it's never easy, that is for sure. You have to remember, there's a lot of pressure on jockeys, a lot of investment from the owner's side. Trainers obviously put weeks, months, years into these horses, and you've got one day where you can go out and it can effectively be your day, or it might not. And the last thing you want to be doing is getting a bad start in a Grand National or in a Scottish National when your horse is effectively there to go and hopefully do the job.
Talk to me a little bit about the owners then, because you mentioned there when you come back in and speaking to the owners, and particularly if you've had a bad start or a bad day and trying to find something else. I always, on reflection now, I feel like when I rode and I spoke to owners, particularly if I'd say finished second or just been beat or beaten favourite, I used to come in really dejected and down, and I'd give relatively positive feedback, like say I'd be looking for the next day, but I think they would definitely get a sense off me that I'm really down and dejected, and obviously that we're human, that feeds across, so they probably left the race course feeling quite dejected as well. And it's something that, like, I wish now if I could go back and change, that'd be one of the biggest things I change about my career. How do you deal with it yourself when you come back in? You're obviously really dejected, disappointed, but you've got to come in and give the owner something to potentially put you back on board the next day and give them something to look forward to at an entry or a Sandown. How do you manage that mentally when you come back in? Do you give yourself a bit of time after you pull up, or how are you dealing with it?
I'd be a pretty bad loser in all honesty. And as Willie and Dad know, they'd be quite sharp to come to the track because they know if I can let out any frustrations onto them, admittedly, as much as it probably annoys them, I let them have what has really frustrated me. And then you'll come back to the owners and hopefully not be as frustrated. But as I was lucky, long before jockey coaches, I kind of had one, which was Carl Llewellyn. And he said, when you're getting off a horse, you have to remember that this is an owner's hobby. Like, they are here to have a nice day. Yes, maybe the day hasn't gone as planned, but they're here to enjoy watching their horse run. So for every negative, if you're ever going to give one, you need at least two positives. And he said, look, it could be as bad as that he looked amazing in the paddock. He went to start great. You have to remember that owners love their horses. And so when you're going to get off and you've made a mistake or it hasn't gone to plan and you're effing and blinding about this and that, that's not their problem. They want to know what we can do next time to win, what maybe didn't happen well today, what we can change to make it a more successful kind of story next time. So I think you have to remember, it's kind of a way I try and always say to the young lads, or even have to remind myself sometimes, is when you're getting off to an owner, like, that is their day to watch their horse run. They might not be getting to do it every day like we're lucky enough to be doing. They're doing it every 2-3 weeks when the horse is going to run. So if you're going to get off dejected, it's just taking away from what should be a nice day for all of them.
And is that something again that you've improved on as you've gotten older, maybe with a bit more maturity, or is that something that you still find really, really difficult to manage? Is that getting off, feeling dejected, being a bad loser, and then not rubbing it off on the owners?
Yeah, I've got better at it. At the same time, as there's a thing with me I find really hard. If I have a moment in a race where I think I've got this in the bag or I've done it and then don't win, you know, that little feeling where it goes through your head, right? Just jump this. At least in the dock at Cheltenham be a great example. I was like, right, meet this on a nice stride, I win. And then literally at the half furlong point, 2 come past me, and I was trotting down that chute on the way back in, and I was saying, we've got to be, come on, be positive, and I just couldn't get myself round. Thankfully, the Gredleys were brilliant. James Owen was brilliant, which then helped me because, like, then son, everyone wants to win. The problem is that little sense that you were going to win and then didn't. Oh, it was gut wrenching. But I've got better at age. I know you can't win every time, and you have to then get off and say what you can do next time to maybe make it happen.
Yeah. Let's do. I want to do a bit more of a deep dive into East India Dock then, just as you've brought it up. Because I feel like that's the perfect example for if anybody wants to go and watch a race, to see how things can go from like elation, I've got this, to within a couple of strides, how have I not won? And through no fault of your own or through no fault of the horses, just pure bad luck at Cheltenham. Give me more of that emotion. Like when you've hit the line, what's the emotion? And then as you're on the way back in, what's the emotion? Obviously, you've given us a little taste of what you're thinking, but I'm really interested in hitting the line, or when the horses have come by you, what exactly is going through your head?
So literally, it was I'd just gone past Sergino and was thinking, right, this is it. Now we're getting down towards the last, and thinking, for me, this on a nice stride, I've done it. because obviously he had a previous course and distant form. He hit the line strong previously. So when he winged the last, I was like, right, I've done this now. Just get going, go through the motions, do everything you need to do. So then I'm like, you literally just literally gritting your teeth, just doing the nitty gritty of it. And then the half furlong pole came, and and you're thinking, no, it's not going to happen. Then Nico got me back, and then John Joe came over the top and got both of us. And then you're pulling up. And first thing I went to do to Nico, went to Nico, and I said, "But was that my fault? Could have done different." And Nico just went, "No, just the occasion." And that's the one thing I said in the paddock before, is I'd ride the race, not the occasion. And that's the hardest thing you have to remember, is that if you'd taken that race and did it on a normal weekday, I'd have been happy. I said I did my very best. End of the day, you can always do something differently afterwards. But then the occasion is the one thing that really killed me, because I'd had it so in my head that it was going to be a Cheltenham Festival winner. Then when it didn't happen, you have to then somehow pick yourself up and dust yourself off. But I'd one ride in the race afterwards, Norman Fletcher. I probably wasn't brilliant with the owners afterwards. It was probably even more awful with them afterwards. I only had those two rides. I promise you, I remember it was yesterday. I stormed out the gate. It was in and out the shower probably within 12 minutes of riding Norman Fletcher. A nice lady on the gate said, "Excuse me, sir, you need a stamp." I said, "I don't need a stamp. I won't be effing coming back." And then I wouldn't be rude normally. And I stopped and I said, "I'm so sorry. I've just had a bad day." And she was like, no, it's okay. We understand. And then got in the car and came back here, and can't remember what I made, spaghetti on toast or something. I actually went and joined Ryan Hatch, the Bridges, and we had a pint in the halfway and watched the rest of the racing, which was quite nice. But there was beans on toast later on, trying to work out how to ride a winner the next day.
And how long does it take you to, say, recover from that? Again, something I always found is after big defeats, they'd stay with me for a long time. I'm talking, days and weeks. After a defeat like that, like you said, it's obviously affected you quite deeply. How long does it take you to genuinely rub that off? Because obviously you're going out to race the next day and you can maybe push it to the back of your mind, but like long term, how long does it sit with you, and how long does it take you to just leave it behind you?
He actually made it one of my top three. I'll never forget. My first ever one was the newest one's champion hurdle. Poor Connor sadly fell in front of us, and that was going to be his first that was our first champion hurdle as a pair, me as a young lad and the new ones. And sadly we lost a couple of lengths, and then we were only beaten I think 3, and I'd say we could probably lost 3 at the time, and I was in a beautiful position. I always just felt that might have been the one. Didn't deal with that well. Zarkanda in a long walk hurdle. I'll never ever forget that day. Ascot, Nicholls came out to the track and ate me the whole way from getting off the track at Ascot all the way into the second spot, and then carried on. That was a hard day. And then East India, because I just had that moment where I was like, this is mine, I've done it. And yes, exactly as you said, you put it to the back of your head, but it lives with you for a little bit. And then obviously you then soon remember how lucky we are to be going out and doing it every day. You get on and go and ride a winner a couple of days later. But this is poor Gavin. I had then had a couple of seconds afterwards. So Fontwell won, Richie McClellan actually beat me. So there was a lot of effing and blinding at the top of the hill from me. And then there was a bumper at Huntingdon. I actually didn't even finish place that day, but the race just hadn't gone to plan. And Gavin was asking me, because it was one of his normal rides, he was asking about the horse, and he got quite a short, abrupt. I couldn't really give a F, and was in and out the way and within 10 minutes. So it's actually not it. If you can go and ride a winner in a couple of days after your disappointment, you can bounce back. But then when you're continuously losing, then it becomes a little bit harder again.
But would you say long term, it sounds like they live with you, like you don't ever, not that you don't ever recover, but you never kind of forget that bitterness, that feeling of loss, I suppose.
You'll always remember them. End of the day, it's because you care. It's because you love it. It's because it's your life. It's what you live and breathe for. I wouldn't, if you said to me, Sammy, your last day's riding tomorrow, I wouldn't have a clue what I get up and do tomorrow. Went in Spa the other day. We were plumped and thought, wouldn't it be nice to come down to the gym every day, do a couple of legs, sit in the sauna, and be like, how quickly would you get bored of that? Whereas this morning, got up, ridden 2 lots, rode something I don't normally ride, and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't mind that actually, or that's going to be all right. And you're doing something different in that is so similar every day. Like you're going to go and sit on 2 different horses tomorrow, or going to have different rides. And it's what I love so much about our industry is that, yes, it is very much repetition. You're doing the same thing every day, but how can repetition be so different? And that you're going from one track yesterday to where was it, Bangor yesterday to Chepstow today. So you're doing something so similar but so different.
I want to stay with kind of jockey psychology for a minute. You mentioned Paul Nicholls eating you alive after Zarkander. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that Paul Nicholls role, because it's interesting from an outside perspective. It felt like, for me, I'll give you my take on it, and obviously you're going to correct me. But from my perspective, it looked like you got into that role quite young. You were Sam Twitston, next new kid on the block, and very successful very early. And you had really good success for him. And then it just seemed to slowly deteriorate for one reason or another. I'm not really interested in the reasons as to why it deteriorated, or why the job ended. I'm interested to how you dealt with it, because you were still quite young coming out of that job. How do you kind of refresh yourself after coming out of arguably the biggest job in the UK? It must be difficult to think that there's nowhere bigger to go, or how do I get my career back on track? I can imagine if it was me, for example, my negative mindset would have gone, I'm done now. I'm after losing the biggest job in England. There's nowhere to go from here. I may as well give up. But you obviously haven't done that, and you've had a bit of a sort of a renaissance, as it were. How did you manage to do that mentally? What did that feel like at the time, and what does it feel like now on reflection?
You have to remember just to enjoy it. It was a situation. I was young, I was naive. Everything kept winning my first couple of years. And then when they started losing and the pressure got more and more, and you kind of get the feel that you weren't really as wanted as maybe you once were. So then when I finished, it was actually a relief, because the conversation then was had. It's quite funny, really. I got the job in Vegas. My very first year, Richie, Aiden and I went out. And then we always went every 2 years. And I lost the job then. I landed back. And my agent, Chris Broad, rang me and he said, you need to speak to Paul. And I said, pardon? He says, Paul's been wanting to speak to you. So I rang Paul and he said, you and Harry are going to share next year. And for me, it was like the biggest relief ever, because I said, no, we're not. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And it was like a relief, because then I was stepping not totally away, because I still rode winners for Paul the next season, still ride for him now every now and again, and we have a good relationship. But it's remembering that under it all there is so much more to life, and I was able to step away from there, getting on. Nobody fell out. I had loads of great memories, loads of still ride for a lot of the owners now, and so many happy memories. And it was actually getting out and remembering racing is like how lucky we are to do it, is because it's fun. Like you go racing, you see your mates every day. You have the crack nearly every day. Yes, there's bad days, days you want to forget. But you're going racing today, Chepstow. We've got a load of like Johnny Burt, loads of theirs, Gavin Sheehan. I've got friends there you'll have a laugh and a joke with, and you'll go out and try and win, make some money, and then you're going to come back and do it again tomorrow. That's the one thing you have to remember, is that we're privileged to be in a position where you're busy and you're working hard. And yes, there's disappointments, but there is also good days as well. And that's the one thing you really have to remind yourself is, although Nicholls' job, and I'd love to be back in it now because I deal with it a hell of a lot better, but it's the position you're in. Go and make the very best of the situation you are in. Enjoy it, take as much from it you can, learn as much as you can, and come back. But everyone deals with everything differently. When I finish riding, I want to be remembered of being hopefully a nice guy, had a lot of fun, and was good at my job. And that's something I try and instill on our lads that work for us, is like, go out, do your best, but don't let it like rule your life. Go out and explore and do different things.
I think that's a really refreshing outlook to hear. I mean, it sounds to me like you place your identity on who you are, not Sam Twitston the jockey. Would it be right to say that you had to kind of detach yourself a little bit from, I'm a jockey, that's all I do to actually know there's more to life, and it's not just all about being a jockey. Obviously, you still want to be a jockey, you want to do well, but that's a facet of your identity. It's not your entire identity. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah, that's kind of the way I'd like to look at it. Is at the end of the day, is I think what you can give back is by trying to help lads learn from mistakes I made. I've made it almost too much of my life at one stage, whereas now I'd happily, if I wasn't riding, so for example Saturday night, I'll go and meet the lads for a drink after sundown, go up, hopefully end up in Cheltenham. And you can't let racing rule your life, and that's one thing I think you forget after injuries and you experience and you go and like have made mistakes, is you realize there's such a big world outside there, and there's so many people that make racing a great industry. But go and have a drink with them, enjoy them. I had a drink with Jed Mason the other night. He's given me one of my biggest winners in Clan des Beaux in the Punchestown Gold Cup. We had a drink together in the Farmers Arms. I don't think we spoke about a horse. We spoke about business, how he was doing, and what I'd invested a bit of money in and such. And that's what's so nice, is that you can have chats with anyone about anything, and just the last thing you're actually thinking about is galloping a horse around.
Has that gotten easier, you think, over the years? Not just for you, say, as you've matured and changed your own perspective, but I think for jockeys in general, I feel like from when I started to now, there's much more acceptance in you can be more than just a jockey. I feel like when I started it, the mindset was you have to be a jockey 110% in racing. If you're not, you're no good, which might have trickled down maybe from the AP McCoys of the world who obviously were drilled in, but not everybody can do that, I don't think. And I don't think it's healthy for everyone. So has it gotten easier, do you think, over the years for jockeys to be able to be like, look, yeah, I am a professional athlete and a jockey, but I'm also got all these other things I want to do, and I want to be able to go and have a pint on a Saturday night?
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, AP was extraordinary, as was Richard Johnson all the way through. And I think now it's so much further spread across the board. You have to remember that AP would be having over nearly 900 rides a season and doing it to over 200 winners multiple times. We think like lads nowadays don't really get to those kind of numbers, so you have a little bit more time on your hands. So I've got probably over 600 rides a season, but it leaves the odd day off. It leaves a bit of time, and for me, that's where you can actually go and meet people and have a chat and actually go and have a bit of fun. What did we do last summer? We went punting in Oxford. I never thought I'd go punting in Oxford. But punting's the thing in the boat, not gambling. Lad. And trust me,
What's
terrible
punting? I don't.
Punting is where you like in the where you put the big stick out the back of the boat and you're trying to like punt along. I don't even know how to explain it best.
Okay.
Me, Aidan, Harrison Beswick, Tom Bells. Yeah, we were pretty crap at it. We ended up just rowing around, I think.
Sounds about right.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's stick a little bit with. I think you made some really interesting points. I want to talk about trainers and jockeys specifically, because obviously we both said, and I think we both agree that it's gotten easier for jockeys to not just be jockeys and to look out elsewhere. But is there still? Do you find day to day now with the trainers you ride for, and obviously you have different relationships with different ones. Obviously you ride for your dad, which is a unique relationship, and then different trainers that you might have longer relationships with and shorter relationship with. I've always felt like, and I feel like when the series goes out, I'm going to get a bit of flack, so I've said this multiple times now, but I feel like trainers maybe don't consider jockey psychology very much. Like when you look at, say, Formula One team principals, or you look at football managers, it seems like they spend a lot of time thinking, how can I maximize my athlete? Do they need an arm around the shoulder? Do they need a bollocking? What do they need? It doesn't seem like trainers seem to think that much, or am I wrong? Do you get a different sense?
Well, it's different, and I'm slightly older now, so I'm surrounded by a load of trainers that deal with me really well, and I like to think I deal with them well. So, for example, Anthony Honeyball, fantastic man to ride for, wants to win as badly as you do, but then deals with it as badly as a jockey would. So there'll be days where some days I'd ride for him, and we might not speak till 7:00 that night, just because I let the whole thing calm down. Then we'd have a really open and great conversation about it. And at the same time, then we could bring him at 6:00 in the morning and be on the phone for half an hour. Dad is brilliant. James Owen has been fantastic. Rode for him just the other evening, and we didn't speak. We just text. And it's like little things like that where you can be brilliant. But then it's other trainers that don't understand how to deal maybe with certain jockeys. That is why maybe it doesn't always click. I think now is where I'm lucky in that as I got a bit older, is every trainer I do ride for, Henry Daly, Dad, Anthony Hannibal, James Owen, I click really well with. They understand how I work, and vice versa, I hope.
And how difficult is it? And you don't have to name them, but trainers that you might have struggled to deal with over the years. How much does that weigh on your mind? How difficult is that to deal? I always found it very, very difficult if there was a trainer that either sort of overloaded you with instructions or dealt with losses really badly or sort of gave you bollockins when maybe they weren't entirely justified. How was there one or two trainers that you found really difficult to deal with? And if so, how did you deal with them?
It was always just the case of going out and backing yourself. Remembering you're in a position to be riding for several different trainers because you've made a name for yourself. The reason you got the rides is because you've put the work in, you turned up, and you've been getting results. So it's time and time again is that you'll be given multiple instructions, and actually just watching the Netflix series at the minute. I think it was Bob Baffert started to give Frankie instructions, and he just stopped Bob. He says, "How is the horse?" And he said, "Yeah, he's very well." And he goes, "That'll do me." And he went and got on. And I think that is basically the brilliance of, not that I'd ever have the stones to do that, but that is why it was brilliant, is that full well as you get a little bit more experience, a little bit more confidence, you can take the whatever information you're getting, you can process it. You might not use it all. You might not even do what you've been suggested, but that's as you get a little bit older and you understand the idea of how the race is going to be ran, and by doing your homework well, is that you can hopefully then get a result by doing things slightly differently. But that pleases some and not others, and you just have to accept it at times. And the biggest thing I'll always say is never be afraid to get jocked off. End of the day, you'll be doing the jocking off maybe one day. So it's like if you're getting jocked off, it's just the idea of it isn't very nice, but it happens. It's just to make the most of the opportunities while you've got them, give it your best, and if the next opportunity comes around, make the most of that.
I think I feel like jocking off is something that the average viewer would struggle with, and I feel like a lot of times particularly on social media, when someone gets jocked off, particularly if they've won on something, I think a really good example would be Callum Shepherd getting jocked off the Ambiente Friendly, and everybody on Twitter kind of went mad about it. Obviously, and the line always comes out that it's the owner's money and they're investing their horse, they can do what they want, and I fully understand that. But I think from a jockey's perspective, I also struggle with the jocking off idea. I feel like it's something that's really unique to horse racing and is really difficult to understand. But like you said, from your perspective, you can just kind of brush it off now and not let it.
Well, it happens. It happens. It happens every day. There could be a little meeting in the week, that could happen. And I think it's part of racing. It's something you grow to accept that could happen to you at any time. You hope it never does. You always want to be riding in the big races, and you always want to be riding the good horses. But you see about it, and what is for racing now, it's everybody's sport. Is that yes, there's owners, yes, there's trainers, yes, there's jockeys. But then what's now, there is so much with social media, everyone has so much access to each other. Before, people might have said it in the pub and they'd be like, "Oh, it's a shame so-and-so got jocked off," but you'd have never heard about it. Whereas now there's so many more platforms you can read about people's displeasure. But end of the day, the biggest person to be gutted about the jockeying off is the jockey. But you deal with the situation as best you can. I mean, look at Callum Shepherd. He's having a fantastic time, isn't he? So as long as you deal with it well, deal with it the right way, and you never know when the next opportunity might pop up. End of the day, I was jocked off multiple times, but towards the end by Paul, and then I ended up riding for Brave Man's Game in the Betfair Chase this year. So never burn your bridges, keep smiling, and end of the day, kill them with kindness is probably not always the best way to do it, but actually, why not? Smile, joke, make the best of it.
Let's talk really quickly about social media, because again, it's something that's changed drastically for the last couple of years for jockeys. I think it used to be if you were posting stuff, everyone in the waiting room would be like, what are you doing, Moon Man, posting everything all over Instagram? You look like an idiot. Whereas now it's more widely accepted that we need to do this to engage more people in the sport. Has that been difficult for you? Because obviously with the David Powers Jockeys Cup and documentaries and so on and so forth, particularly jump jockeys have really been thrown to the limelight. Has it felt like a big change for you, or is it something that you're quite happy to accept and roll with?
I'll be really honest. I need to get better at it because I think I was one of the ones probably that let the team down more than anything. I'm on X and Instagram and Snapchat, everything that counts. But it's one of those. I actually wasn't very good at it. I need to get better at it. A lot of the lads have actually now employed people to help with their socials, because I think the more you can get out there, the more you spread your name, your brand, the more people you can get involved. I'm not brilliant at it. I was school of Carl Llewellyn. The idea of giving someone, I don't know, X amount a month to do something I should be able to do or could do, I can't get my head around. And one day I probably should. But it is good. It's the end of the day that the David Power Cup was I understand how it can be viewed by lots of different people, but it got jockeys outside the weighing room engaging in what hopefully people found interesting. And you get to see different characters. Nico de Bonville is people I hope have seen what we've seen for years. He is honestly fantastic value. And then you see Charlie Deutsch, who quite simply you would never believe what Charlie has been through, and you see this version of him that we get to see. Otherwise, you see him go around the racecourse, he speaks about the horse afterwards, and you never learn anything. Whereas you probably learn more through the David Power Cup about a lot of jockeys than you'd ever learn. So I think it's a great initiative. It's getting people more active on the socials. And yeah, this means you're open to more criticism, you're open to more this and that. But why not? It's a big world. We've all got to take the flak of it and help grow what is a great sport.
Yeah, 100% agree. Let's talk about getting your name out there again now. And I could be taking a risk with this question,
Instagram?
No, I wanted to ask you, and this is a recurrent theme. I'm not just going to ask you. I wanted to ask you about your love life and how that's going, because it's obviously, again, from my own knowledge of how difficult it is, and from the outside perspective how busy you are, it can't be easy to manage your love life. So I wanted to ask how your love life's going and how you manage it.
I've ended up single again. I'd be a bit of a nightmare now. I take racing home. A lot of the senior jockeys tell you because they've got families, they can't. Nico is one of the best. When he walks through the door, racing's done. Whereas for me, I bring it home. I would come home and not want to talk, not want to go out for dinner, not want to make tea. I'd pick up a sandwich half an hour from home and eat it, full well knowing that Joanna, my last partner, who's still very friendly with, and she's a great girl, and she'd get back from racing and she'd want to go out for dinner, and I'd be like, sorry, I've ate. She'd be like, I haven't. I'd be like, oh, sorry about that. And it's just, you become pig ignorant and rude, and just because it was my way of dealing with losing, and I wouldn't want to make conversation. So I wouldn't be exactly the easiest character. And one thing I've said now, until I can generally I can get back home and understand what helps me tick, then I won't put anyone else through that torture again.
You're not advertising yourself very well here. I was going to start putting your Instagram handle and the Snapchat in there, but I don't think anyone's going to there's not going to be any takers now, is there?
There's a reason why I live with my brother, is because we just don't talk to each other. We've had a bad day. It's honestly, mine and Willie's relationship is the healthiest one in the world. We get back home and just won't talk. And then get up the next day like we're best friends.
So, long story short, you are single and probably in the market, but be warned, if you want to get with Sam Twitston, it's not going to be easy.
I'm not an easy character to deal with, that's for sure. I do my best. I'm kind. I'm very giving. I'm just very bad at losing, and especially when I get on a bad run of it, I bring it home. Probably not what everyone would want to hear, but there we go. What a terrible sales pitch. There you go.
Yeah,
that's one thing
really
I'm
not
doing
good.
is selling TVs after racing. That's for sure. Yeah, it's a nice TV, but Might break one day.
Well, at least you're honest. I mean, there might be some girls watching this who think, you know what, he's really honest. I can
That's
fly
one
with
thing
that.
I would actually sell myself with. I'm incredibly honest. I have no reason to lie. As I always say that, I would say, well, at the end of the day, if I'm not happy, you'll be the first person to know.
Excellent. Right, let's leave it there before you dig yourself into another hole.
What a great sales pitch.
Right, it's been really fantastic. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and I think we've gotten through an awful lot. So I think we can leave it there. But I do want to say, obviously, know you're coming to the end of the season now for the national hunt. I'm really looking forward to what goes ahead next season. Not just not just the festivals, but throughout the season. Obviously, I keep more of a keen eye on it now in my job probably than I used to do, and getting to know all the jump lads in the weighing room has been really fantastic. So, want to wish you obviously all the best for next year. If you end up is Vegas again this year, or are you waiting until next year for Vegas?
No, I think we're waiting again. So obviously Richie's very loved up. Aiden's actually back in the Cotswolds now, which is nice. So I imagine we'll end up doing something together. But I imagine America will be next summer, sadly. But shall I send you an invitation if you need?
Yeah, that gives me a bit of time to save up and buy a ticket and everything, so that's fine.
Definitely.
Great. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Sam.
No, thank you.